So generally, I don't really read books in general. Only even when I was younger, right? I never actually used to read much. I was more of a science kind of guy. But then coming into Sikhi, then a lot of the stuff that we learn was through the books, right? And now we've got social media and the internet and YouTube, right?
Indeed.
So definitely, the only time I'd read anything was like the self-help books. Like there was this, The Secret. Have you read that as well?
No.
Pastor, you read that book before?
Indeed.
So when I was at university, these were the kind of books that we'd be introduced to. But I think what's really good about this book is that in one respect, it's like a self-help book, just one aspect of it, but it builds a great bridge between what you see in the Western world, all these self-help books, and what Gurbani has to say as well. So was that like your aim? Was that to bridge the gap between the Western world and Gurbani?
I think somewhat. I think the spiritual message of Sikhi, it's kind. Sikhi sometimes just looked upon as like an externally thing that we do, or as nitnem karde hain. Even from the outside Western world, I don't think Sikhi's given the spiritual level that it deserves. So one of the elements was certainly to give the message in a. So kind of it merges that Western thought a little bit into it, but you can't. Gurbani is not necessarily a Western. I don't think it's an Eastern thought either. I think there's elements of history that make it a bit Eastern, but it's a spiritual thought. And I think the spiritual part of it was the most important focus. But how do you do that where it's self-reflective? Because there's so much things that, I mean, I don't think I've covered a fraction of, it's only a small fraction of what Gurbani is saying. But it's just trying to get the essence of it. What is the essence of it? And so that someone from a Western world could relate to that style of a book, if you like. It's kind of a introspective kind of asking yourself.
And by some, I really like the way at the end of each chapter you've done questions to ask yourself, and also what's next. And I find that like introspection that really helps to understand what you've just read in the chapter.
Yeah,
and you can actually use it as like a journaling type of thing. You could like work. It's like a guided type of thing you could do.
No, that's right. And I wanted to kind of aim it for a workshop-y type of thing as well, where it could be done in a group way. There's multiple people can read the book and come together after the chapter on the questions. And so it is a little bit around that kind of a self-help approach, but it's just, I think sometimes you can learn a lot. I mean, I've tried to learn a lot about Sikhi, but sometimes you don't necessarily reflect on it. I might be able to quote it, and I might be able to do a lecture on it even, but do I do it? And I think that's the reason why the question part was there. It was and as you say, like people today, there's a lot of people from the Sikh and I guess Punjabi community who read a lot about self-help in many aspects, and that's been our learning. But it's interesting that you say about reading and not necessarily reading a lot, because that the school sometimes in a way have stopped us. They haven't built that in me. I can only talk about myself, and they didn't build that love for learning. That's a love for reading. That's reading for pleasure, they call it. We should be doing, and Gurbani is about padna as well, sunana, padna, manana, but also likhna and gauna. So the reading element slowly is coming a bit away from us because it's easier to watch a video, and it's easier to watch or perhaps listen to something, but it's such a fundamental part of Sikhi is to keep reading is important as well.
Definitely. And even last night we were just talking on WhatsApp before today, right? Just make sure we had our questions all thought about as well. And one vichar that came up was that maybe this is a good book just for beginners. But then what was really interesting is that even from your interview was that it's almost like a reset that you're saying, right? For people that are already into Sikhi. And that's what I definitely felt when I was reading the book. And to me, it was kind of like I was doing Saad Sangat. The book was like me doing Saad Sangat. It was like a Gurumukh was actually talking to me and giving me advice. And I think that's very unique as well, especially because like you said, there's a lot of Gurbani references in there, which is great to see as well. And like it was great to see in the interview. There's so many Gurbani Pankti are coming as well. And I get very excited about that kind of stuff. And that one that comes to mind is like Har Nave Nal Galla, Har Nave Nal Maslat. That you're speaking to literally to Guru Sahib, and Guru Sahib is giving you that advice. and it can be through many different platforms. And reading is such a great platform that we take for granted, because it's like you're just sitting there. It's just you and that book, whether it's a Poti Sahib, it's Gurbani, but this is still, giving that message in that way. And that was very special to me, to be able to have that Saad Sangat literally with the book as well.
Yeah, and when we read, when we say when we're talking to Guruji, Gurbani is a conversation. I know it becomes, when we use the word reading, it sounds like it's like a one-way read, but Gurbani is not that. Jab gur bole, tumre gun kya kaha mere satgura. Jab gur bole tab bisham ho jaye, na. Jire bisamadhi is like wonderstruck when Guru's talking, and sometimes the silence is because you're so elevated from what Guru's saying. But really it is a conversation. It is because the reflection part of it is that conversation part. And Ardaas asli, when it comes from inside, then it's, that we do formalized Ardaas, and I'm not to criticize one thing or the other or anything, but we do formalized Ardaas. But the section, when we get to the He Nimania, that part there, that's your dil after that, That's what you're saying. So we learn that through Bani first, about what Guru's message is, what's Guru saying to us. Then afterwards it should be coming out in us, man bachi karam, so the man in our mind, in our bachan, what we speak, and our actions that we do. So you're trying to infuse all three of those things, and so then it becomes let's say, when we say where's God, why am I here? The whole point of that. Why are we here? Because God's present. God's present, and that everything that we do becomes it's not just a physical conversation from our mouth. Just talking. It's a we're our sangat of Vaheguru everywhere. Shabdan, when we do Anand Kaaraj, they shabd nahi sagal guna guna utamo parta dur na pikhdi. So a human being is what God's our husband, and if we're Sohagan, our wife, then the biggest virtue that we can have is God's near us all the time. So it's like He never leaves us. But unfortunately our man is like that, and it just keeps forgetting, and then it gets merged in a temporary thing again for a bit.
Just that point you talked about Ardaas as well, because that's something that I think a lot of us take for granted, because after a while it becomes like a habit. And we just end up just doing the formal Ardaas and quickly saying we just read Bani, we also Mafi and these kind of things. But just in your own experience, I know this is going a bit off topic, but we'll come back to the book anyway. But I think these are important things to talk about. How important is Ardaas to you in your life, and do you stress it a lot to other people as well?
Yeah, I mean, my children, they're not necessarily that young now, but I've always said to them, whatever you ask for in Ardaas daily is what you get, So if a Sikh doesn't ask for Amrit-Vela jagna in Ardaas, mera khayal ghatt hi hoga Sikh jara jagda hoga at that time. If a Sikh doesn't ask in the Ardaas pe panja duta to bachao mainu, ghatt hi chance hoga that it's going to develop there, So that Ardaas, eventually it is what becomes pargat inside of us. What does that when we say Bhakti or we're doing our Sikhi, it's what emanates inside at the end is the true result of it. The proof is in the pudding. But it's more that what's proof for Sikhi is in what we're asking for, what we perceive the dunya as. The other thing is, and that. I think the premise of the book was, even the baseline was, our attachment to what we have and our desire for what we don't have. And that's what Guru's message is. By Ekko Satgur Jagata, Hor Jag Suta Mo Pyas. The dunya is asleep in those two things. So the Ardaas is our awakening. That's our opportunity. Not to say, obviously, the Bani that we've read is supposed to be that anyway. It's Ardaas form, and it's form anyway. But Ardaas Hamari Swami Visarana Hi Sukhdate, Gurbani Ardaas Rupaya, really. So even the formalized part, we have that, but then there should be dil in our Ardaas in daily. And if we can make that, our shortcomings are, we should be asking for them, the shortcomings. So I think when we go back to the reflective part of the book, is to reflect on sometimes you don't know what you don't know. If I don't know that I'm engaged in Maya,
yes,
then I'm not really going to ask to come out of it. Hai na?
Hanji.
So first thing is to recognize it. Heard a katha, there's four kind of stages of understanding. First is to understand something. If you don't understand it, Soj is to do vichar on it once you've understood it. Chete is rakhana, to remember it, to do it. Hai na? Krit is to actually do it. Hai na? So it'll only get to doing it if you first understood it. So you understand, then we reflect on it, then we remember to do it, and then we actually do it. Hai na? So going back to all of those things, if we when we do an Ardaas, it's first about understanding by meriya kamiyan, or my weaknesses are these. And then I asked for Guru to take them away. Hai na? And even sometimes, even if I've got something, it shouldn't mean that I don't have to do Ardaas. Hai na? I should still be saying thank you to Guru Ji.
100%.
When we hear Ardaas in the Gurda pe, 4 pehar din te sukh naal batit hoye na. 4 pehar raat te sukh naal batit karna. And even our history of the our Matawa who were in the jail, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਇਹੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਭਈ
ਹਾਂਜੀ
ਤੇਰੇ ਭਾਣੇ ਸਰਬੱਤ ਦਾ ਭਲਾ, ਭਈ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਭਲਾ ਵੀ ਹੋਵੇ. They're killing their children, but they're asking that Waheguru to do pala of them. So their soji must be very, very, what they perceive the world as must be different.
Very unique.
Hanji.
And Bhai Sahib, I have to say, I have never read a book like this before, like portraying Sikhi in this more spiritual side. Like in English, I don't think there isn't really much out there like this. And I think that even for like my friends who aren't really into Sikhi, if they ever ask me what is Sikhi about, I would give them this book.
No, that's good.
This is what I would rather, because at the moment you go to school and you learn in like RE Sikh studies, like, oh yeah, Sikhs are the 5Ks and all this stuff, but then it doesn't really delve into any of this stuff at all.
Yeah, and I think what I try to do is move the traditions to the back. Sometimes it's the other way around. The traditions come first. And it's not Guru's made it like that too, because a Sikh is like is a visible thing. Guru Sikh isn't something that's hidden away in a jungle somewhere. It's a visible cheez Guru Sahib's given. It's like Khalsa mero roop hai khas, Khalse mein ho karo nivas. Guru Sahib is saying this is. So we have to have the roop side, but unfortunately, sometimes the roop, the perception of Sikhi is just that, oh yeah, they wear these 5Ks, they wear turbans, and they give really nice food to you for free. It's kind of that one. And that was when I was talking to Baljit Singh from Derby and everyone, and they're saying that sometimes when we go around Nagar Kirtan or anything like that, what the people are saying, oh right, that's nice. Where do all these people come from? Who are they? And then all they generally take away is that you get really free food when these guys do a Nagar Kirtan. But it's more that Sikh is elevated, when we talk about Guruji, Guru Gobind Singh Ji's bani, Atm ras je jane so hai khalis dev, jine Atm ras nu pachan liya, the one who understands what Atm ras is, that's a khalsa na. Prabh mein moh mein tas mein ranchak nahi ped, between God, Guru and the Sikh fark nahi hega. So bahut uchi avastha, Guru's trying to take us to a very high level, but we can't just minimize that thing and just say, seva is important and our bana is important and everything else, but don't throw the baby out in the whole thing. So you got to, going back to the essence, that's what I was trying to do, is just say, let's focus on what the message is Guru saying to the Atma, the message to the soul. And I think it's Guru's message, as you know, is ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ, ਤੈਨੂੰ ਕੋ ਕਿਆ ਉਪਦੇਸ਼ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੇਵ ਨੇ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੇਵ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਸਿੱਖਿਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ, but we all know that message is so beautiful, and people take bits of it and make other, they make some make other things out of it.
100%.
But ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਚੀਜ਼,
even I was thinking the second last chapter about the 10 facts, 10 tips. I was thinking, yeah, we can make that into a video. Top 10 tips.
No, I don't mean that. I mean that people who aren't Gursikh, okay. I'm saying people who aren't Gursikh, they take elements of like, Vartaman, power of now. That's a concept in Sikhi. When we say about the world illusion, we say Maya. There's many of those smaller concepts, probably taken from Hinduism resources, because we don't have the English resources there. But so slowly people can make interesting things from those smaller concepts. But a holistic cheez what Guru's telling us I regard it, and maybe I'm biased because I'm a Gursikh, but I think it's the most important message in the world, obviously, for everybody, for whole humanity.
Definitely.
So, a person in jail, I think one of the Manveer Singh, and he gave it to a Muslim. A Muslim was asking, he's saying, I'm stuck, I don't know, you know, or whatever. So he read it. My sister's given it to, you know, her friends at work, you know, non-Sikh white people. So hopefully it's a message that can be some, I think they do get a little bit confused about what the Gurbani is still saying. They don't fully, obviously, because I'm kind of probably writing it from just saying, yeah, Guruji is saying that. But when someone's seeing it fresh, brand new, I think they might still, you know, have a few questions about, you know, what does that actually mean? You know?
Yeah.
I guess that's where they will hopefully have that urge to go and learn more and take the next step, right? And what's cool is that it's just a universal message, like saying that from a Muslim faith, because you say Guru Sahib is Jagat Guru, so they're here to help everybody, and we can all take aspects from it that we will learn a lot from and apply in our lives. So for me, I think my favorite chapter was which chapter is this? The one about slowing down. Is that chapter 8? Can't remember. It's on page 31, I think, or something.
Number 4 or something. I think it's somewhere around there.
31 about slowing down. That really hit me a lot because I'm like always trying to get things done quickly and try and do more multitask. When it comes to videos and doing all this other kind of stuff. And what was really profound about what you're saying in the book is that actually just by doing more, it doesn't mean that we're going to be fulfilled in the inside as well. So I think that for me was the reset, like we were talking about earlier. And I think the biggest thing I took away from the book, and now I started preaching it, because like that's what we do. We want to get a book and we start going around saying it. It was do you work to live or do you live to work?
Yeah.
And that just blew my mind because I mentioned to one of my friends and he goes, that's true, because you never meet someone in a deathbed that said, I wish I spent more time in the office. Right? So are these like personal experiences as well that you've experienced in your life when it comes to these kind of concepts that you were sharing with people?
A lot of them. I mean, obviously, I've met lots of people. A lot of people I've spoke to them about problems in life and various things. I think one of the when a person is overindulging in something, sometimes there's an issue. So, for instance, if someone's doing a 12-hour day work, sometimes it's an avoidance, you know? Whereas from the outside, it might look like, oh my gosh, look how hard they're working. That's amazing, you know, something like that. But I'm just currently trying to understand addiction. So I try to research some things around addiction. It's very, very surprising how some of those traits we've got them. You know, when we say he's an addict to alcohol or gambling, but Gurbani talks about Maya mad, hai na? Maya is mad. It's a shrab. It's an intoxication, and it's our intoxication to that thing. That's really equates. It's the same as someone who's an alcoholic, for instance, hai na? And when sometimes when you see people who are overindulging in work, for it, sometimes it's because they're avoiding some reality. You know, sometimes people drink because it's a coping mechanism, for dealing with something that they want to avoid. You know, sometimes it's a numbness, it's a taking you out of that environment and all that kind of thing. So when I say about slowing down, why are we working? Why are we doing it? You know, there's a rat race out there as well. This sick can easily get caught up in that thing too, because, you know, from my experience, sometimes we set our goals really high, and then when you can spend many years trying to reach that thing, and then if I really asked you, do you really need it? You might sit down and say, well, probably not, but you've spent 45, 50, 60 years doing it. And then you're going to carry on and say, then you can say, my grandchildren, it doesn't end. That thing doesn't end. So how much do you need? What do you need? And when I say, you know, living to work or working to live, it's, you know, those two things, I think we generally, I mean, one of the things that I was talking to, I did a couple of lectures on why am I here as well, but we've got all our things upside down. Our main priority is wealth, and then underneath that it might be our reputation, it might be our family, it might be then right on this other lowest scale over here is our soul, Atma, Ji. What with that we don't really give that the same amount of intensity, if you like, as we do those other things, and that's what Gurbani talks about. Bhai Gurdashi talks about many things. Is the intensity that we give to the false thing. We don't do the same thing to the to Gurbani. Like the intensity, look at a parai istri or another woman, we don't, our eyes aren't focused on saying darshan, darshan, darshan. And the intensity we use our ears to do nindya. You know, they're not the same as when we say, oh, Gurbani Kirtan, Guruji bol diya, Guruji bol rahe hai. And you know, when we say nindya, we say a lie, we'll say that with a lot of ras. But we won't use that same intensity when we're saying Guru da Shabd. Guru Shabd or Kirtan hove, part hove, whatever. We don't use that intensity. So that's what, that blinds us. And then we're not doing, if we aren't using that intensity, but we do a lot of intensity for our work. So now it's about reflecting, saying, how much time am I reading? And there's nothing wrong, you know, everybody should work, by the way. You know,
I was about to quit my job.
But everybody needs to work. But it's like when you're at work, there's many things that you can do to stay connected. You know, there's a chapter on staying connected. You know, like you're going to the toilet. You're going to the toilet, you could do, you know, you're wasting time, you know?
Yeah.
You can use that time. You're going, you know, lunchtime. Walk to work. I used to walk to my work and my stairs. I used to have these stairs. I went there for 17 years, you know? But when I hit the stairs, it's just Simran.
Yeah.
Then you just do Simran when you hit the stairs. I know it doesn't matter. So after a bit, that becomes routine. You know, coming out the car, going in the car, sitting in the car, listening in the car. All those things they're time wasting things that you can utilize. So
we've got a lot of time based in the day, right? That we're not utilizing effectively.
Yeah, and then you know when you look at somebody at work, what do you see? Do you see a Murak? Or do you see someone? Do you see Waheguru Jot? You know, and there's these avastas that we've got to get through. You know, there's levels of spirituality, like we say, and some elements of Gurbani. You can't tell somebody who's kind of connected to the home or meh a lot about some of the messages because they won't understand. Like if I say to you, God controls everything, they'll be like, whoa, man, that's just nah. But what Guru's saying is we go from this level of home to a level of bisamadhi where we're kind of wonderstruck by God, but we still don't understand God. And there's this Sajavasta that's higher that's saying you actually have a connection with God. You understand God's close. No, you know you can have that. Not to say you understand the limits of God, but you understand God. You know that's why Atma becomes ik with God. So, but what we've got to move from is this home thing where it's all kind of about me, isn't it? We're working for me, you know, and everything's. But we've got to move away from that and start seeing God at play. That's a could be regarded as a higher state, you know, a higher state than I'm talking in respect of. But it's to say when I see somebody, how is God making this person, you know, work? You know, we read Visamad, Sanjog, Visamad, Vijog, Visamad book. What God is making everyone playing games. Yeah, it's a game, you know. It's playing games with everybody, and so you could even your work when you're sitting with people. It's like what depends how you interact with them, whether you make so. Sikhi can be expanded relatively quickly in terms of what you do daily. It could be. It isn't just about Nitnem or something like that. Huh? There's a, you know, Pichal Rati, Bhai Ardaas says, Pichal Rati Jagana. You know why we wake up in the Amrit-Vela and see, utte naam, daan, ishnan, dridai, you know? The drid hundiyan cheejain, they get implanted at that time. First thing is naam, God's presence, you know? Daan, where you become a hirda, your heart becomes softened, you know? And ishnan is cleanliness, not just physical. It's like to try and remain nirlep or clean from maya. But that happens at Amrit-Vela first. You have to reset it every Amrit-Vela.
And just Vaisa, just speaking to you as well, Satkar Yoga as well, but it's like the way you're speaking is like anyone can relate to you. Like it's like I'm sitting here with somebody that's the same age as me, speaking the same kind of language.
I'm only 29.
Yeah, and I'm 19. I hope I look 19. But yeah. Was you always into Sikhi then? Because it's like, you know, you just, it's amazing just hearing the stuff that you're saying and like you're talking about in the workplace and, you know, and I guess relating to people as well. So was you always into Sikhi then, or was it something that came later on in your life?
Yeah, I wasn't, I mean, I'm from a Monna family. Like my dad drank and smoked, you know, and but we were from like underprivileged, I'd say, in terms of family wise, but we were like dosses, huh? Chor si mein, I used to steal.
Okay.
We used to rob. We used to do lots of wrong things, let's say. You know?
Hanji.
But the sangat was like that. We were just growing up. We just grew up like that. It wasn't anything. But that what happened was my mum did Amrit at a certain age.
Hanji.
My sister did it, and then so it was a process. But I did Amrit at age 22. But before that, we manamukh and the
So how did that change happen then?
So is a kind of a small process. One of the elements of it. It went to a camp actually. It was Bhai Nirmal Singh from Birmingham. He passed away with cancer. No? He's the first the Sikh Students Societies, and he's one of the founders of those. But so I went to his, and he was talking really passionately about Sikhi, and we went there. I went as had an earring in my ear, gold chains and all that stuff. Right? But what he said to me, and it's different from sometimes the way Sikh treat everybody else. He said to me, "You sit here,
okay,
you can mere naal baithe the." Whereas sometimes you just think, "Well, that person ain't, he's lost the plot." But he sat me next to him. But the stuff that he was saying, he said, and I still remember a lot of the stuff that he said. That he's saying that Guru Gobind Singh Ji made Sikhi hard, said to wake up early in Amrit-Vela. He goes, everybody isn't going to do it. He want my pyare ones to wake up. I remember him. He said that, and he was saying stuff like, in our cars and stuff, we put khande. We have khande in the back. He goes, but Sikhi to bahut dur hai. We're really far from it. And I could relate to all of those things because that's what we used to do. We used to say like we're sick still. We're still sick, but really we'd ਉਹ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਬਾਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਨਾ ਪਰ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੈਂ ਸੁਹਾਗਣ ਆ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ says ਫਿਰ ਬਾਤ ਥੋੜੀ ਨਾ ਪੁੱਛੇ ਹੀ ਤਾਂ ਸੁਹਾਗਣ ਨਾ ਹੋ ਨਾ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ so we were kind of we had an identity of Sikh, let's say, but we had a ਰਹਿਣੀਨess ਹੀ ਹੈਗੀ So what happened was that was one element of it, and I started listening to Bon, and I was at university anyway, and I did before my exams I just did Japji Sahib, my Japji Sahib padh la piya na, and then I did Ardaas at night time and Soila before I went to sleep. I just started doing that, and then this really strange things happened there because I didn't one of these exams I didn't revise for it, I didn't understand it, I was really worried about it, whatever, I left it. And the other ones, but all my grades were higher than everybody else.
Is that your tip for how to study that?
I got one grade higher on every subject. And these guys saying, you scammed it. What used to be Sundays, and I used to say, I ain't revising, मैं गुरुद्वारे चलना. So I used to walk to the Gurdwara. It's about 40-minute walk to the Gurdwara. So I used to go and Gurdwara. But that made my faith kind of like say, whoa, hang on, there's something here, huh? But Guruji to look after karda. I went to second, I did the same thing, similar thing happened in another second year, but I'd stopped doing part, huh? So I'd done it, did my exam, then I stopped. Then the grades come and my friend failed. He failed and I passed, huh? And I was saying like, he's revised 3 months more than I did, or 2-3 months. So it's like, there were various things like that where Guruji or Ang Sangha, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what it doesn't matter if you're Amritari or not. I think it's a very important point, You obviously you see Amar Shakanaya, this is a Guru Sahib, that's our first red. But even outside of that, anyone who shows any pyar to Guruji or aap both, ek penda jaye chal wali gal hai, if you take one step to Guru, he doesn't look at he doesn't look at what you're doing, and there's many parts of Gurbani that say that where Guruji says, Sadhguru Sada Dayal hai pai, bin bhaga kya pai hai. But Guru's always dayal, he was always compassionate. Ek nadar kar vekhe sab upar, ek nadar naal Guruji dekhde to everybody, je ha pao te ha phal pai hai. How much love you give, that's how much phal you get back. So if you love Guruji and you got a problem, Guruji is going to save anybody who says Guruji ne kuch kar dena mere liye hun. So there were small things like that. Then eventually, cut a long story short, there was a big lecture about how chasing Sikhi. But when I went to work, my case were longer. I understood I'm cutting nahi hai again. And they pulled me in the office, said you got to cut your hair. I said I ain't cutting my hair. I said I'd made it in my mind. Make a dog sada tak main Amar Shaklan. And they said, no, you gotta got to cut it. So I said, no, I'll tie a turban.
Why did they say that, Bhai Sahib?
I was in an organization. It was a kind of a very, very. It was in the 1990s. It was a very racist. It was very racist. I went to that place and they said, they took me to one side, said, you're brown, the way you look. They're basically saying you're brown, we don't really want you at client sites. So when that whole year for me was just a change from a spiritual Sikhi perspective, so it didn't. All of that, I wasn't that bothered about it, but they were basically, it was a bit racist. But what they were saying was, it's scruffy, your hair's scruffy. I said, look, I don't cut my hair anymore, I'm not cutting it. So anyway, made the star Sajali. So within 5 months of doing that, whereas I set a goal for 2 years, did it within 5. But I was at this place where I was in bliss. I loved that place. I was waking up in the morning, Simran kar lena, do part, Asaki war, go to work, come back lunchtime, listen to more katha, do that. I'll go back to work, come back in the evening, listen to more katha, rest the part, do some part, and go sleep. That was my day, It was like so I was loving it there. It was good to actually. I had no television, nothing like that. Didn't do anything like that. But by just doing that, it made me focus a little bit more. So when I say slow down, it's good to come back to the point.
I was thinking as well now.
Yeah, it's like that was a slow down for me. It's like I just got rid of everything. So just what is this Sikhi thing? I should listen to Harban Singh Jagadri wale Sukhmani Sahib. I don't know what he's saying. I don't know what it is. I have no idea what he's on. Sukhmani Sokha Marad Brava now. But I should shut my eyes, shut the curtains, and just listen to it. I'm telling you that ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ bad karma ਮਿਟ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ. Telling you that 100%. They stop. So they were the kind of the things that led up to.
So, Bhai Sahib, just a question on that, on Karam. Do you think there's like a direct correlation between like how much seva simran we do and our karam? Is it like, okay, I'm going to do Japji Sahib and I'm going to get something later on in the day, or how does it work?
It's a complicated subject, but those things. It's ਜਿੰਨਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪਾਉਂਦੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ like sometimes we think I'm going to do something here, I'm going to get something in the next life. ਏਦਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ. That can happen and when we say pura bale karam, Gurbani talks about our pichle actions. Sometimes we think, oh, in my last life I must have done something really bad. But I've seen stuff happen to me in this life and I'll give you a small example. When I was at work once, I used to get company cars there. This is just shortly before I did Amrit. And I used to drive their cars. I know Mercedes, Audi, I'm going to take their car. And I took this guy's car once and I was parking it and I just scraped this car. I must have put a dent in it about this small and I shorted, And it was a really old car. The paint was all messed up and I'm like, what's the big deal? I've left a little scratch on the car. So I didn't say anything. I just went back inside, whatever. So after about a year later, I bought my own car and I'd had it parked and like this come back out and my car's got like a big dirty dent in it, like V dent, and it's in the place where I've scratched that guy's car, and it was like, to me, that's my तू है ना कीता ਉਹਦੇ ਲਈ ਇਹਨੂੰ fix ਕਰ है ना and so and I've had it with friends as well where I've said to them don't buy stolen stuff and this guy bought stolen stuff and he's calling me a fool. He's saying you're a fool to in those days video players, DVD players, if you bought something now you got it for 20 quid, he goes, what, to shop you don't have to pay 500 like I'm gonna go to the shop, he goes, I don't do that. But anyway, his car got stolen from the someone robbed his car. They must be selling all the parts one by one, innit? And he came back and said, he goes, I'm never ever going to buy robbed things again. So, and that's what it is, isn't it? It comes back to you straight away. So when we talk about the guna side of it, if we say, obviously that's the bad side. If we say, if I'm doing some bhakti, the phal is immediate, It depends how you absorb it. Like sometimes we say, when we're in the Gurdwara or we're doing part or we're doing Simran or we're doing something like that, Guruji is actually there. It depends how much you want to believe it, Guruji is there, Sangha, so when you do those things, all what a Guru is saying is, Gur ka Sikh bekar de hate, if you do some action and you let go of some bad trait that you have, so let's say I start listening to Kirtan instead and instead of, I don't know, doing some other thing, all that falto immediately ho janda hai. Because sometimes just that thing that not coming back to you is a big thing, You know, if, let's say I would say I was a chor, na? Just the fact that I didn't do stealing again, that to me is bakshish, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a bakshish, na? Is sometimes just the bad actions that were probably written for you, na? They're gone. But you, sometimes it's hard to even understand how much has Guru taken away. We won't really know. Na?
Just when you're talking about your routine when you're younger, and about, you know, doing your part in the morning, going to work, lunchtime, coming home, and then in the evening, it seemed like a very simple kind of lifestyle. Just you had your routine, and it just reminds me when I was at university, it's very similar as well. And I think those are great times.
Yeah.
Do you think it's more difficult now then? Because again, maybe you've seen that generation, now you've seen this generation as well. Because now, I know you said there was TV in those days, but there was not many channels, right?
No,
today,
yeah.
there's so much things you can watch, right? So do you think the challenges are different today? Are they more difficult, or do you think it's just the way we perceive them?
The challenges today are very difficult. And you know, the biggest, I remember the day I was talking to Rajdeep earlier, when the first time we logged onto the internet at work with a modem. Oh, chika mar di, and he says, then it should connect or something. But,
do you know what modem is, by the way? It's got a young person in the room, and he might not know what that is.
So that's how we're connecting in those days. But how much that thing's grown now to what it is today, and the influences that it has on everybody is very, very different. And at that time, people were being controlled through BBC One, BBC Two, Channel 4, Channel ITV, and maybe Channel 5. And today, you're being controlled by whatever you want to look at. And so that challenge in itself is massive. If you don't have the strategies to be able to cope with that thing, it's going to eat you, it's going to eat you up. And TV was the same. I mean, just because there was only limited channels, you're still focusing on something that is not of that much use to you. So now the challenges are different, and I think there's a bit of a looser society as well. I think you know, I don't know if you may not notice, maybe you have, but slowly, you know, I think there is a moral decline. There is, and if I asked a Gursikh who in 1990s about what Sikhi was versus what I asked today, you know, now there's loads of variations of what you might perceive as Sikhi, sometimes it's like naam japandi lode nahi, or so there's many. So the information is good, but at the same time, it's making sense of information is a skill in itself. So there are certainly a lot of challenges for modern day youth, and so you need the message in a very clear way. And a lot of the time when we read Sikhi, which is good, there were autobiography books or about somebody's jivan and all that, which is good. So it's about looking at how that. But then sometimes those things seem like you're reading superhero book,
Yeah.
It's like somebody who's like way out there, and then you know, how am I going to be able to?
Do you have a favorite book of a Jeevani that you read?
I've read Baba Harnam Singh. I mean, I translated some of his book. It's still on the internet somewhere. It's a really bad translation, but part of that book. And I really enjoyed that one. You know, and obviously of you know, Bhai Jagraj Singh's book, and then there's also you know, I used to listen to all the katha of Sant Kartar Singh, Sant Jarnail Singh, all those. So there's various things about Jeevans and all of those things. So they were interesting, but I say you can't. Sometimes you can't. How do I apply a kind of an India Jeevan to this Western Jeevan over here? If I say Baba Harnam Singh's book, for instance, you know, he's kheti body and he's doing, you know, he just lagge rendis, you know, he's doing kheti, he's just 125,000 shabd par le, and in you know, enniya mala pher liya. That's what he was just all the time, So you know, you can't. Those sometimes then it becomes like. They're all pujan yoga, by the way, Sikh Mahapurush Sikh really, but at the same time, what does a person who just feels average do? So sometimes the gap becomes too big. So there needs to be some stepping stones in some clarity. How do you get to that?
I think that's where Saad Sangat helps a lot, right? Which is one of the sections in the book when you broke it down to like 8 sections as well. And I think that's definitely very important as well, that we do Saad Sangat, hence why you stressed it as well. I remember just hearing just reading some at the house of Guru Angad Dev Ji Maharaj Ji, and they're talking about in the morning, Guru Sahib would go to the Darbar Sahib, and the Sangat, I would see Guru Sahib Ji going. So it's like, you know, just imagine that Satguru Ji is there, in the Darbar Sahib, and they'll sit on the Takht Sahib, they'll sit on the throne, and they keep their eyes closed, and then all the Sangat to be sitting there, and it's like they wanted to be in Guru Sahib's nazar, right? That when Guru Sahib opens their eyes, they get that Kripa Drishti, they get that glance of grace, right? And I think if those are like the simple messages, like going back into Guru Sahib's Hazuri, going back into their court, and being amongst those people, and I know for myself, like when it came to Amrit-Vela, for example, because I'm sure many of us, we all struggle at times in our lives where Amrit-Vela wasn't always there, or it was there and then it stopped. Amrit-Vela being waking up in the morning. But for me personally, it was when I would do Sangat of Guru Sikhs who had very strong Amrit-Vela. And for just randomly the next day start waking up in the morning again. Did you have any of those experiences where it was the people around you who had that Kamai, and it's like, you know, like they have that thing when it's like they just, the dust just flicks on you as well, the charanturi or the dust from wherever in their body, and it's just like they're just filled with blessings and they just pours onto you as well.
It, you know, Saad ke sang mukh ujal hot, Saad ke sang mal sagli khot. If you, that shabd, the actual essence of that chapter is just from one body of Saad ke sangat from Sukhmani Sahib, Saad ke sang mite abhiman, Saad ke sang pragte so gyan, everything's there. Mukh ujla utte hi hunda hai na. Even when we say Amrit-Vela, you know, Guru Sahib says, Saad Sangat to, you know, har Amrit-Vele vatte ka bijya, Bhagat khaye kharch rahe ne khutte na, you know, even in that shabd Guru saying, hor kisi jagah to milna nahi hega Amrit-Vela, Saad Sangat to milda hai, you only get it from Saad Sangat. We can't just sit here today and I'll say, I'm going to become some Abhyasi Singh.
Amrit-Vela.
So it comes from Tinki Barakat Khaye Asankh Karode, hai na? Jini Bhagati Kiti ya, you know, just there, just a little, jitna tusi kande, the little bit of that there and there. Ona Asankh Karod kha lende ona di. Like today, I say that if a Sikh is here today, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਜੰਗਲਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਨੇ ਭਗਤੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ, ਉੱਥੇ ਸ਼ਹੀਦੀਆਂ ਪਾਈਆਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ, we're eating the essence of that today, right. Also, it's come to us today that it's available. If we want it, you can have it. But it's only because all Sikhs ne ditti hai cheeja. They're giving us, we've got the environment to do it. So Saad Sangat, 100%. If you know, Jan Avat ka ehi swal, Jan ke sang chit ave na, just Sikh de naal beh ke naam da chit aana chahida. That's the essence of a Sikh. So imagine there's lots of them.
Yeah.
You know, I always remember this Bhai Jagraj Singh Ji where Bhai Sahib says, you know, if you take three ingredients, Kyo hunda hai, jam dudh hove and mitha hove na, kad mithiyain bahut ban jandiyan hai. But he says if you add two more ingredients, he goes, oh ginti to bahar hai na. And he said, talked about colours as well. You mix one or two, then because you mix three, you mix them, and then a whole array of colours comes out. But he's talking about Sangat as well. Because ek Sikh hunda, do Saad Sangat panchi Parameshwar. You know, you have one Sikh, you have two, the Saad Sangat panjadi, panje Parameshwar. But in one of these, you have more than that. He says, Ran do, vichar to bahar hai. And that's what Saad Sangat is, Saad Sangat. I hope the essence of Sangat doesn't go away. You know, when we talk about Sangat, I hope that it just doesn't become a dating place, Shadi.com in the Gurdwara. ऐसा ना बन जावे पे इथे you know सारी दृष्टि यही है पे ऐसी कुछ लेना है इथों. You should be going to Sangat because इथे कुछ देना man. Sir, really अपनी सेवा देनी तुसी तो गुरु साहब ने आपे दे देना सारा कुछ. Shouldn't be going to that. उन्हों corrupt ना कर दी है ना. That's a diamond that is. Hira ya for us on this dunya. So if we can make that Sangat strong, ote bahut sheti cheezein mil jaye. So as you know, when we talk reflectively about, there is a Kaljug has got worse, and Maya seem to be more powerful, but Sangat at the same time is, if do tin Sikh hone bhakti wale ote bahut kuch ho jana na Sangat as well. So we'll never lose anything. Depends what attitude we go there with,
and just building on with that topic as well, when it comes to Sikhitothemax, which we learned about from the interview as well that you did, some of the talks that you've done with other Guru Sikhs as well. And what's great about that is that somebody that goes into Saad Sangat and they may still feel a disconnect because they may be sitting there listening to Kirtan, and again, even though you don't understand it, you can still get a lot of ras from it and connect from that. But that aspect of being able to look at something on the board, and I know Bhai Amardeep Singh was talking about Anand Sahib, and that was the same for me as well, that when he was at Ardaas Sahib in the Guru Car here in Safo, and it was the Anand Kaaraj meri mai Satguru mein paaya, and just seeing that pankti was at that time was just mind blowing. Just being a university student as well, and that really bridged the gap for a lot of people. I think definitely, even like with I think SikhNet maybe use Sikhitothemax as well for the translations. When I used to go on SikhNet in the first days at the whole Shabad library of Kirtans and stuff as well. So maybe just some vichar on that, because I know a lot of people today they get involved in technology and these kind of and I guess everybody, whatever job you have, you can still do a lot of seva. You can have a big difference. Like we always say, Guru Sahib Ji, Guru Nanak Ji Maharaj worked in a shop. And look how many lives they saved from just working in a shop, and afterwards they put a jar and went around the world, spread the message. But just the aspect of Sikhitothemax, where did the idea come from? And just for those people who are in the field of technology, maybe, because I'm sure that's your field that you work in, what could they maybe do, or what are the ideas that you might want to share with them that can inspire them?
Yeah, I mean, when I was trying to find shabds, there's a thing called a shabd tatkara,
Anji.
So like, imagine I quoted a line, a pankti to you, from Maharaj Ji Bani to, then you how would you find that?
Anji.
And so there was a tatkara that was made by Kalikot, I can't remember, I think it was Kalikot thing. It was that you had to go, so it was done in order. So you'd go through, find that pankti, find the anga that it's on, then you go to Maharaj, then you see the shabd, So that problem was still there in 1990s, yeah, it was still there then. So it was.
So was that a book, or was that like a?
Yeah, it's a book that you can get from like Bhai Tarsem Singh or Singh Brothers or whatever. It's called the Shabd Tatkara.
That's massive.
Yeah, it basically is an index of the panktiya, sorted.
Wow.
So you there, and we had the same problem at that time. So, but I was obviously in databases and data and searching and programming languages, So it was just to have a look at that problem again and say, like, can we solve this somehow? And so that's where it kind of started, was to say, the first one was just searching for words and stuff. Something on the same topic. If you say shant, I said, what are the shabds saying about shanti, and or calm or krodh or something like that, or jamdut, so that was the searching part. But then it was still a problem, because how do you find if the Kirtani started a shabd? Yeah. If we start a shabd, say Jo mange thakur apne, now I'd need to know, is it how is Jo? Is it mange? How is that spelled? Thakur.
Just a funny story on that, because you can do the first letter thing, right? Yeah. And when I first used it, I never knew that. So I'd actually try and spell the word. And I spent ages then. The hukunam was like, okay, there's one word, like mange. How do you spell mange? And now the hukunam was finished. So I had to guess the ang as well. So just about found it.
That was what the issue was, that one. And so it was like, that was an experiment. I tried it for, I thought, what would happen if you just tried to put the first letter in, and accidentally it worked.
Right,
and it was like, it was fast. So we tried it on a Renswai. So these guys, that shabd change kari jande every 5 minutes, and if it works there, it works anywhere. If it works there, it works anywhere. And it worked. We were able to find the shabds and stuff and follow along without the Kirtani telling you what shabds are going to do. Because it's still, even if you could search it Jo mange as in words, that's still useful, because a Kirtani could tell you at the beginning to say, I'm going to read these 3 shabds, and you'd have them ready, So that's still a solution,
Definitely. So much more difficult than just the first letter.
Yeah. So that's where all of that stuff that came from. But it's and then we've given some of the data to, like, SikhNet wanted to do it for their library and things like that. So they use the data. So it was great. But in terms of moving on, I think the only where it can improve is obviously interfaces, making it a bit easier to use, all that kind of stuff. So we're doing something on the mobile app now to make it kind of really easier to use. But also later on it'll be voice, won't it? Voice recognition, and that's probably
is this something that you were looking into as well?
Yeah, so we were looking into similar stuff like that, about voice and also font recognition.
Yeah,
because at the moment, like Google fonts and stuff, it can automatically recognize text and convert it into like Unicode or whatever.
Yeah, but it's you have to use an image. So if you use an image, It doesn't do a bad job actually. It does a quite a relatively accurate job. You have to still have to fix it. But Google's actually done it for that. But they don't push Gurmukhi or Punjabi, however they call it, into as mainstream as Hindi, for instance. They don't push it into the innovation areas that they're doing. It's still left as a kind of a thingy language. So it needs some pushing. But they've already cracked that problem in terms of OCR, character recognition. They've done a pretty good job on that.
This is why I switch off all these words. OCR. I don't know what it is.
We were in India, and we had to get to an iCamp, and it's in Hindi. It's in Hindi, and so I just took a picture of it and put it through Google, and it actually told us the address. So, so it's very useful. It does Gurmukhi too. So, but like I say, if you switch it, if you put it into images first, it does that. But absolutely, I think Sikh Panth we shouldn't be waiting for Google to do it, all those kind of things. The Panth, we should be having our own innovation labs.
Or what about this? Like, instead of having someone manually change the slides, it would automatically be able to understand what you're saying, the shabad being sung, and then automatically
the voice recognition. Yeah. I mean that's a next step that could potentially be. The thing about it is like sometimes if the shabad is like Har 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 naam japa Gurmukh naam sada le la har 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 bhagt drida har naam ma. So then sometimes it becomes any of the vah vah shabds na. Sometimes the vah 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 karti rasna, but sometimes vah 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 comes 2 or 3 times. So it'll have a good go at it, it won't necessarily be. So it's got to be much more than first letters, is what I mean. It's got to be stripping out a little bit more, and then but it's 100% possible. To voice recognize. If the tabla will smash probably damage the thing, innit? If you've been to a Keertan and try to get what they're saying like that, but I mean that stuff works, isn't it? They're doing it with songs, aren't they? You recognize songs and stuff like that, so they're obviously filtering out music and working out what it is. So. But again, that's a dedicated track, isn't it? I think songs are easier because there's a sound wave, isn't there? Sorry, we're going to end up with some technical conversation. It's a sound wave and they're just recognizing it. It's a bit like now if you did a background music on this and you uploaded it to YouTube, if you used a copyrighted piece of music, it detects it now in the background anyway, doesn't it? So that's what they're doing. They recognize the sound waves. So there certainly is an approach to it. But it's quite. I would probably guess it's quite difficult now with Gurmukhi because just because of spellings, application of bindiya, application of adak. Those kind of things, all of that has to be taken into consideration. So it's not going to be straightforward. It'll be in the background. Yeah, they said that, but they probably mean this, that kind of engine at the back. That's
some kind of AI.
More, it's just kind of like saying probably means that. And so, it would be good, interesting project. That would be. But over and above that, I think certainly things like, books and having a searchable database of Sikhi information, which would be useful anyway.
Definitely a lot of the simple things that we've probably not done yet as well.
Yeah.
So what's the plan after this book then? Do you have any plans to write another book anytime soon? Or
next week, Anand Kaaraj book's coming out. Anand Kaaraj handbook, I think the marriage situation in Panth is a bit difficult as well. So that one was just to say it's a kind of a what we do wrong. I mean, I'm obviously married and I'm at a certain age, but it's very difficult to change things. Whereas no one gives you an upadesh early on, about life. It's very, even though Gursikhs used to, like now it's hard. And it's a very changing society now about what values are as well. So inside of all of that, how do you make marriages work? It's somewhat challenging in some cases, But again, everything goes back to the simplicity of Sikhi, doesn't it? And we complicate life through all the other things that we do.
Do you do courses for parents as well, right? Like parents courses for kids? I think I remember seeing that a while ago, a few posters as well.
For
parenting classes, like
Jagraj Singh does parenting. There's another Singh does that. Yeah, we do enlightenment course. We were talking about Sikhi spirituality just before we did that, and that was interesting too. And I think that's some of the reasons about putting it down on paper. I think is because as we're going around, there's the baseline of Sikhi. trying to kind of highlight some of that baseline there it's really important that message gets taught for young ages and for even as we're saying older ages and say have another think, have I applied Sikhi in the right way, that kind of thing. So the course was one of those elements that like I say fed into that.
So it's never too late then, even if somebody's old.
No, it's never ever too late. अब तक कुछ बिगड़ो नहीं जो प्रभु गुण गाओ है ना बिगड़ਿਆ ਤਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਗੁਣ ਗਾਉਣ ਲੱਗ ਪਵੇ ਅੱਜ nothing no problem.
ਹਾਂਜੀ
Sadhguru's like, you know, when Farid ji wrote shabd about Kali jini na ravya, toli rave koi, kar sayin se upper hadi rang na vela hoya na. Farid ji kehinde bhai jine kale daadi naal nahi japya, kale kesa naal, tole jadon aa jana na virle nahi japna hai. Then the beauty of Bani is mahla tija comes there na. Guru Ardaas ji.
ਹਾਂਜੀ
गुरु जी से भाई फरीदा काली तौली साहिब सदा है जे को चित करे अपना लाए पिरम ना लग गई जे लोचे सब कोई ए पिरम पे अल्लाह खसम का जय भावे तेंदे है ना जे so गुरु जी saying नहीं इदा नहीं हैगा ना this is person can't achieve it themselves, so you know you can't achieve it just because I've got kali dadi or I'm 20, you know. That doesn't mean that person's going to get it. Sari bakshish hai Waheguru di, you know. Jine pyar kita Waheguru naal, if he je khush ho jave, it doesn't matter what the age is, you know.
And just another question that I had in my mind as well, when it comes to doing seva for the Panth as well, I know you're involved in when it comes to like Panch Pradi seva as well, Ji. When it comes to, you know, those who are looking to take Amrit as well, because when I spoke to another Gurmukh who does the seva, they were kind of a bit disheartened in the respect that many of the young people that come into Sikhi now, the kind of questions that they ask, it kind of just shows the way that maybe the Sikhi is being taught now, that it's all based around like Rehet, and which is nothing wrong with, even it's said in the book as well, that's important, but it's kind of just it's become like the most important thing, and all the other things like spirituality, Naam Japan and stuff, we don't really focus on that. What do you see yourself when you look around? Do you see that, you know, maybe the kind of questions that we're asking are wrong, or is it that maybe we've not done a good job of relaying to people what we should be really focusing on in that respect?
One of the areas in the book, one of the chapters is about virtues, you know, qualities. Because look, I can deflect the fact that I've got a really bad personality by just being really strict on the outside, you know? I can deflect that. And really, I'm not fooling anybody, I'm fooling myself, you know? So for instance, you know, मैं कंगा है, time sir करदा, you know? And my kashara is like right length, and all that. मैं shakda only strictly, you know? All those things, they're important thing, you know? It's for fine tuning, Sikhi. I would say they're fine tuners, you know?
Okay.
I look at Rani side, it's fine tuning. The essence of Sikhis, that's not what the essence is. Ke sada uniform Guru Sahib ne ditta sanu. Without discipline, you cannot be a soldier, na? Without being a good soldier, asi dharam sara gwa lena ya. That's Guru's concept of, you know, of a Khalsa, no? Of a Sant Sipai, a saint soldier, is that we'll lose everything if we just keep saying, well, I'm a saint, but I'm not going to protect it. You know, that became obvious to us. I saw the Panth had to, you know, we had to adapt to that thing. So although all our soldier side is important, and if I use a real soldier example, imagine a soldier does all that thing. You know, I knew a guy from the army, and he had to polish his boots, and I felt like proper shiny and stuff. You know, his sergeant major guy, he says walk into the room because it had to be tidy, you know. And he goes, you know, like you got architrave on top of the door, so he used to walk in. He used to go, he went like that. He goes, what the hell's that?
Oh wow!
Better be clean in 15 minutes, huh? So he made them really disciplined, innit? That the room's tidy. You know, you look after your gun, you look after everything. Your uniform should be spot on. But then, what good is all of that if I stand on the battlefield, and then toilet nikal jawe, and you know what I mean? Then he's not a soldier, na?
Yeah.
And that's what Gagan the Mama Bhajo is, na? But andar ladai honi hai hon. And there's going to be outside one, but there's one inside as well. And we're not prepared to have a fight there.
Yeah.
We're just saying, whoa, yeah, gussa aa gaya siga. Kaam aa gaya na. Krodh aa gaya, lobh aa gaya. We just say, oh, chalo. Haar gaya na. ਬਈ ਕਾਮ ਕ੍ਰੋਧ ਕਾਇਆ ਮੈਂ ਸਬਲ ਨਿਤ ਉੱਠ ਉੱਠ ਜੂਝ ਕਰੀ ਜਾਏ ਨਾ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਦੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡੇ ਸ਼ਸਤਰ ਧਾਰੀ ਵਾਲੇ ਸੂਰਮੇ ਆ ਅੰਦਰ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਲੜਨਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ that fight outside is small is small ਹੈ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਨੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਨੂੰ ਜਿੱਤ ਲਿਆ ਨਾ ਬਾਹਰ ਤਾਂ ਈਜ਼ੀ ਆ
ਹਾਂਜੀ
ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦਾ ਰਾਜ ਬਹੁਤ quickly ਹੋ ਜਾਣਾ ਆ really quickly
there was a really nice analogy in your book about the money, power, and lust is like a fire. And the more you feed it, the more it grows.
Yeah.
I think all of the analogies in here, I really like them, and it's about changing your mindset, really.
Yeah.
Right. Even going back to the routine one, I really like the line where you said you should wake up for God rather than wake up for work.
That's right.
And all these simple mindsets, I think, if we just implement them slowly and slowly, Sahaj and all.
And there's fight sometimes because Gurbani has hidden gems in it as well. Look, Guru wants us to do khoj of them, hai but there's panktiyan di chare agn nivar, hai and then there's another pankti that tells you what those 4 agniyan are. The 4 agniyan na bhai jehde mainu cheta bhul gaya but it's Hans hate lob kop hai te Hans hega violence hai we're violent. We don't have to have a fight, to be violent. Our speech is violent, my netra violent, when I see somebody, mera dostya, mera enemy, that's violence, hate is a false attachment, to this dunya. Lob, greed, cope, gussa, these are agniya. If you keep feeding them, what grow ho jane, they're going to keep growing, and we keep feeding them, we keep giving them. Jina marji shaki ja tu hai na it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. Guru saying inan agniyan nu nivar pehla you have to finish those fires inside and waking up for God is an important concept because when I ask people why do you know it was a story about somebody I don't want to expose anybody but one of the conversations that we have sometimes Sikhi na main a question but I said what do you wake up for in the morning and I swear he got stumped he goes I've never even thought about it. But मैं उठदा कल ही हां that's fundamental thing that we do every day जागदे हैं ना जागदे कल ही हैं why are you waking up for we don't even know है ना so we waking up ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਸੇ ਰੱਬ ਦੀ ਪੂਜਾ ਕਰਨੀ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਫਿਰ ਕੰਮ ਤਾਂ ਹੋ ਜਾਣਾ ਨੇ you know in Rama Singh's book he wrote about the Khalsa Raj he goes 3 ਘੰਟੇ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ and even let's just say that's his dream maybe it's whatever it might be and he talked about Darbar Sahib knocking out prashadi from machines before they got the machine so they do machines there now but he's talking about they work 3 hours there's a reason for working 3 hours because all bhagdi ratte hone it must be like ਭਗਤੀ ਨਾਮ ਜਪੋ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰੋ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਸੁਣੋ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਝ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਸਾ ਕੀ ਵਾਰ ਸਾਰਾ ਸੁਣ ਕੇ ਦੈਨ ਹੁਣ ਕੰਮ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੋ ਹਨਾ ਦੈਨ ਇਟਸ ਲਾਈਕ ਆਫਟਰ ਡੂ ਲਿਟਲ ਬਿਟ ਵਰਕ ਸੇ ਛੱਡ ਪਰੇ ਕੀ ਕਰਨੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਾਇਆ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰੋ help everybody else imagine village we talk about villages if we say Southall or we say Coventry or we say whatever we say imagine all the Sikh were just saying ਜਿੰਨੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਹੈਗੇ ਨਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਘਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪ ਸਵਾਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੰਮ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਆਪੇ ਹੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਹਨਾ ਇਮੇਜਿਨ ਜੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਸਾਰੇ ਸੋਹਣੇ ਚੰਗੇ ਭਲੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਹੋਣ ਨਾ ਦੈਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਾਇਆ ਦੀ ਬਹੁਤੀ ਲੋੜ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨਾ we got like we ਰਾਜੇ of the ਦੁਨੀਆ ਹਨਾ ਬਸ ਅਸੀਂ ਭਿਖਾਰੀ ਬਣ ਗਏ ਨੇ ਭਿਖਾਰੀ ਜਿਹੇ ਬਣ ਗਏ ਆ there's ਬਾਣੀ ਸ਼ਬਦ where Guru Ji talks about Maya like he talks like a prostitute ਹਨਾ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਡੋਰ ਕਰਦੀ ਆ ਤੇ ਸੰਤਾਂ ਨੇ ਲੱਤ ਮਾਰ ਕੇ ਕੱਢ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ ਨੱਠ ਜਾ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਤੇਰਾ ਕੰਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਤਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਇੱਥੇ but what we do is ਕਿ ਤੂੰ ਆ ਜਾ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਮਰਜੀ ਭੋਗ ਬਿਲਾਸ ਕਰ ਲੈ ਨੇ but ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਤਾਂ ਲੱਤ ਮਾਰ ਕੇ ਕੱਢ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਘਰੋਂ and ਉਹ ਬਾਹਰ ਖੜੀ ਹੈ like this ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕਰਦੀ ਕਿ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ but it's opposite for us now ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਸੁਹਾਗਣ ਬਣਾਤਾ ਆਪਣਾ she's our wife and where Guru Ji saying ਤਾਂ ਚੱਕ ਕੇ ਬਾਹਰ ਕੱਢੋ ਉਹਨੂੰ so there's a big shift that needs to happen in Sikhi ਵੱਡੀ shift ਆ ਵੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਆਸ ਆ on all you guys ਅਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਬੁੜੇ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਹੁਣ ਸਾਡੀ ਆਸ ਹੈ ਨੈਕਸਟ ਜਨਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਸਿੱਖ ਬਣਨਾ ਹੈ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ
and that was a question I was just going to ask you as well about when it comes to next generation what advice would you give and to us because we're very young got a lot to learn as well because you mentioned points about like a dushman and having enemies, and something that we see a lot around us, that we're very divided. And I'm sure we've definitely fallen the trap as well, where we see divisions. But it's only when we actually speak to Gurmukhs we realize that there is no divisions, right? When you meet a true Gurmukh, right? But what advice would you give to us and for, people who may be watching this now in the future, and, they are going to be that future, right? And when it comes to having this enmity, even within the Panth, because one thing that blew my mind as well in the interview you did by Amardeep Singh was that, you see another Guru Das Sikh as your dushman. That just blew my mind to think that, and it's quite heartbreaking to hear as well. So what advice would you give to anyone, but definitely I would say for the youth as well that are now going to step up in the future as well and take over those sevas like Gurus?
The thing is, if two Sikh can't sit together, I don't care who that Sikh is. I don't care what your sochani is about certain controversies, let's say Panth, which I don't care what they are.
If
I can't sit with a Sikh, and I'm saying this to you dilon mein keh raha haan, then meri Sikhi nahi hegi. Because I can do Sanj with you. If you just only thing you know is Sukhmani Sahib, me and you could do Sanj for the rest of our life. If that was Mia, Mir or anybody else who just all they took from Gurbani was Sukhmani Sahib, our Sanj would never break from him. Now we made it so fragile. We're saying, what I'm saying to you is like, your Qurban is like 1 inch short. Teri dastar na gulabi rang diya. Hun main gal nahi karni tere naal. Now, theek hai, look, there might be something that by sitting together, you both learn from each other, and you might say, yeah, meri kamjori hai. But you can't block the door straight away, And I personally think that the political side of our sochani took over because we're trying to make groups bigger. We're trying to make groups bigger. You're trying to make, we say that, or we're trying to make a soch more prominent. Soch kedi prominent tusi karni hai. Ye chotiyan je gallan hai. If I say if I've got a certain rayat and you got a different rayat, and I say, well, now mine wins because I got 100,000 people and you got 20, then what have I achieved though? It's because our target, nishana, kite pahunchna in life, which is really off. We're trying to make some things big because we call that satkar, na? Jehde Gurmukh hai gaya, I do not need to protect any Gurmukh. Je Gurmukh sochni sachi hai. Let's say from a Samparda perspective, I'm trying to protect my Baba, my Bhai Sahib, or my Santaji, or whatever I'm trying to do. That's not what I should be taking. I should be taking that gun, and then they're gone, and I should be applying it and helping the dunya. That's what I think is a kami. I think that's certainly everybody. They all had some slight variations in what they thought. We can ignore those. I think in the majority of the things that we do, where the things are relevant, talk about it. Where it's not relevant, why is that a dividing factor? So all I see dividing factors are differences in Reni Beni, there are differences in Samprada, and there might be some slight differences in the way we do our bhakti. Some slight differences, but all of those none of those matter. Everybody can do Kirtan together. Je Vaheguru bol ke to sare simran kar hi sakde hai. Everybody can do Vichar of Vani. It doesn't matter if someone's Vichar might be slightly different. Siklo, what's the other person saying? You might learn something from that other angle. I don't know, when you read Bani, do you ever, slightly off topic, when you read Bani, if you learn some new concept over here, all the other shabds start meaning something different. Then you learn another concept over there, then the other shabds start meaning something different. So the Bani's always changing. You're always learning more and more. So it doesn't matter if someone's going to tell you something slightly different angle there. You might learn something. It might be that's not right, but it might apply to something else. I've learned loads of things from non-Sikh, where you look at it and you rethink about Bani, and you think, you know what, gal bhi theek hai na. Sometimes I was talking about addictions before. If you look at the models, what they apply to addictions, Gurbani's got a lot of those already done them. Been there, done it. It's already done. Addiction di gal ta ho gayi utthe sari. So when we talk about that that divide, if je guna ka hove vasla, kad vasla hi jai, na. Je guna da vasla hai na, Guru Sahib saying, Sanj kije, guna ke ri, chhod ab guna chaliye. If we can't do that to a Gur Sikh, I personally don't think Sikhi nahi kamai isi. Hale nahi kamai. Oh, kamani edda kamani pani hai. You have to like, and as a Gur Sikh, I shouldn't be obnoxious with my views, If I've got a view that might be differing from yours, it doesn't mean I slap you on the head with it, That's obnoxious. That's vindictive. ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਹੰਸ ਜਿਹੜਾ when I talk to you about violence, that's the very violence that I talked to you about earlier. It's a fire. It's a fire inside to make me try and prove to you that something. I don't need to look at you and prove to you something. I should be looking at you and saying, I'll give, and I always use Bhai Jagraj Singh Ji for that, because I think it's a disanja. If we want to say who's the common personality for everybody, it's Bhai Jagraj Ji, Bhai Nandlal Ji. Stay there for a second. Just stay there for a second. And then we don't. Now all the other things start disappearing. We don't have that much of a problem. But let's walk at the way. He's in, Sikh that attitude air. You sit in front of somebody, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਆ, you're a doctor, ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਉਹਨੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰੇ ਸਿੰਪਟਮ ਆਪੇ ਦੱਸ ਦੇਣੇ ਆ, ਜੋ ਆਪਣੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਦਾ ਗਿਆਨ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਯੂਜ਼ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਨੀ ਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ, ਵੀ ਉਹ ਮਾਇਆ ਚੋਂ ਨਿਕਲ ਜਾਵੇ। there's all these ਵਾਰਾਂ about ਹੁਣ ਸਦਕੇ ਤੇਰਾ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖਾਂ, ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲ ਆਪ ਗਵਾਇਆ, ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਹੁਣ ਸਦਕੇ ਤੇਰਾ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖਾਂ। but one of the ਪੰਕਤੀਆਂ ਦੇ is ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ ਦੇ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ ਮਿਲਾਇਆ, ਹੈ ਨਾ। ਸਾਡਾ ਕੰਮ ਆ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਲ ਮਿਲਾਉਣਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ, ਹਾਂਜੀ, ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਇਹ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੰਮ ਆ। ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ we lost our purpose, I think we lost the purpose. Now it's about being right. What right about what? ਅਸੀਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ right ਹੋ ਜਾਣਾ, ਹੈ ਨਾ। ਉਹ ਭੰਡਾਰ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੈ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦਾ, and inside of that there's more ਸਾਂਝ, like I was saying to you. But if we're 99.999% the same, let's start arguing about the 0.0001 whatever it is, then we ਮੂਰਖਤਾ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ। So I think everybody ਸੂਝਵਾਨ ਸਿੱਖ ਬਣੋ, ਨਾ, ਸੂਝਵਾਨ, where ਇਹ ਛੋਟੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾ, ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ। Personally, I don't think that you're gonna, you're gonna be measured on your love for Guru, na? That doesn't mean it's wishy-washy that I could say anything now. I can't change the red, na? That's not what I'm trying to say, na? I'm saying you're going to get measured on how much you love the Guru, and these are frameworks. Just remember, please take that away, that if you have Nanak Sar, or you have Akhand Kirtan Jatha, or you have Damni Taksal, or you have, if framework use the framework, innit? Use framework nu use kar lo to improve your Sikhi, है ना, but don't get caught up in the framework, है ना। Framework that एक चीज है for you to keep you grounded. We all know, if जे मैं अमृत ना शक्या होता ना, would I wake up to do Nitnem? I'd probably say, 1-2 miss a few, ठीक है यार, है ना। Or some of the things that even a person possibly wouldn't, जेरे परत्रिया रूपा जे वो बजर करे तो probably wouldn't control it, है ना। So these things that's holding you together into a framework, so that you could do bhakti, है ना। Framework bhakti नहीं हैगी, framework's not the bhakti, है ना। The framework's the cup that's holding it, and bhakti ਤਾਂ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੀ essence ਆ ਨਾ। If we haven't ਉਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਕਮਾਇਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, what you can talk to me about that all day, whatever, innit? It's what you gonna get from that? But then or you've forgotten the center point of the whole point of keeping the red, है ना। Then ho jabe Sikh just keep going on about red all day, and it should be, there should be, if you lost the essence, है ना, बाणी दा जेड़ा essence आ प्यार दा ना, if you lost that essence, you ain't got nothing, kuch nahi hega. So we can I can sound really convincing with my strong speech and something like that, na? You can be really but if the cheese is gone, Sikhan de vich Sikh are gonna get to Rab really quick. Gursikh ਜਦੋਂ properly ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਨਾ, ਰੱਬ ਬਹੁਤ ਛੇਤੀ ਲੱਭ ਲੈਣਾ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੇ, very quickly. I don't think there's going to take long at all. ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ we're going to be understanding what we were doing wrong. ਅਸੀਂ ਗਲਤ ਕੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਗਲਤ ਇਹੀ ਆ, Guru's trying to take us out of this. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਫਸ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਗਏ ਕਿਸੇ ਚੀਜ਼ ਵਿੱਚ, it's a trap, ਹੈ ਨਾ। So you ain't going to get out of the trap if you start understanding that other stuff. Stop. We've got to all stop this emphasis. I don't, ਤੁਸੀਂ, you watch fighting? ਹਾਂਜੀ. What do you watch? Boxing? MMA and boxing. UFC. MMA. Yeah, UFC. I watched UFC from the beginning, है ना। ਜਿਹੜੀ UFC ਆ, what happened in UFC? UFC ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਈ ਸੀਗੀ that they all said, karate said about a boxer. Boxer said we can batter a jiu-jitsu guy. Jiu-jitsu guy said about a thing, about a sambo and all the rest of it, all the other stuff that's going on. A kickboxer said, I'll kill all of them. No. They all got in the ring, Shittar khale sare ne. And then jiu-jitsu won, है ना? Brazilian jiu-jitsu won. Now, as soon as everyone sussed out Brazilian jiu-jitsu, they all start learning it. By UFC 4, Brazilian jiu-jitsu lost, है ना? He was getting shittar. Royce Gracie started getting battered, है ना? And the point is that in the Panth, you might have these sampardas, and sare apne guna. When you put them all together, each one's going to say, well, mine's better than yours better than mine. Just shittar sare na khale in the ring, and you don't know that's going to beat that, that's going to beat that. But eventually, when they all understand the guna of each other, so jiu-jitsu man slowly understood I have to start doing kickboxing, and I have to start hands, I start punching after, and the kickboxer realized I have to learn my ground game, and the boxer learned the most of it. Hathanal is the least, it's the least. So we all different sampardawa, but oh jado guna da saanj ho gaya sareyan da, and then you're gonna make a proper MMA fighter, a proper Khalsa nikalna when everybody comes together with all the gone from all of them, and then says, "Acha, now I've understood." You know, so this is just part of that process. We're at UFC 1 yet, I think. We've got to get to
what was on that 260 something?
Yeah, we have to get to about 260 or something. So kuch na kuch pargat ho jana, na?
Bhai Sahib, just on that point of identity, I think that the book really helps identify what our identity is, what our purpose is on a basic level, you know, on a basic understanding. And I feel that we can connect better just by reading that.
Yeah,
understanding what our purpose is, because otherwise nowadays a lot of people, especially the youth, they're wandering around aimlessly. They don't know what their purpose is. They don't know why they're waking up.
Yeah. I mean, you know when you're learning, I was because I've had kids and I had to learn about education and all that kind of stuff. You know, when you learn something, or one of these tutor guys, he came back, he's trying to sell us this video stuff of maths and all that, but his analogy was teak, you know, you're making a brick wall. He goes, if you miss 2 bricks here and miss a brick there, he goes, when you're building on top of that, the brick wall's going to keep falling down there. It's going to carry, it might be stronger there, but it'll fall down. If the baseline of our Sikhi is weak, we're going to keep falling down on certain bits of it. For instance, let's say mere vich daya nahi hegi, I've got no compassion. Main seva kari jana hai, but I'm going to keep losing the seva. And the reason why I lose it is because I don't look upon the people as Rab di jod, I haven't got compassion. But mere hath kamjor hone ya, you know, the seva that I'm doing, because I've missed the essence of it. If we break going back to the point about Sad Sangat, if we break the essence of Sad Sangat, it doesn't matter what Sad Sangat I do, or the phal mainu thoda milna ya, thoda hi milna. If I understand the baseline, be mitha bolna, you know, when we're talking about the 10 things that you could do, mitha bolna, being humble, waking up for God, all these kind of, if we're doing all this, if we start doing all those things, then build Sikhi on top of that. On platform, theek ya, it missing nahi hegi. It's not solid at the bottom. Now, when we're building it, we're not going to go to year 20 and then we say, oh my gosh, I just made a massive mistake and all my Sikhi's gone. That's why you have to build it from a solid thing at the underneath. And then when the underneath thing grows, when you build on top of it, your Sikh is going to be good, good day chahiye. We're not trying to be Puran Brahmagyani, you know, the Satguru Mehr Karna, it doesn't matter, you can make anyone into anything, but I'm saying, to see, build a solid foundation, work off the right thing. So I'm hoping that it isn't that we've been taught, you know, the teaching hasn't gone wrong, and I'm hoping it isn't that. But what I do find, and it's important you guys know, you just had an elder generation and they really hated each other with a passion, they really hated each other. And unfortunately, some of that hatred went into the Najwans. And then I'm hoping that by level 3, generation 3 it's 90% gone, and then level 4 it's gone. By generation 4, you guys level generation 3, yeah. So if it's gone somewhat, then it's good. Hopefully it'll be, you know, it won't be there. But Sikhi's going to have many challenges where Panth is going to have to come together. You know, there's going to be lots of attacks on Sikhi. At the moment, Sikhi's not that much attacked because it's not in the conversation. If you look at, I don't know if you watch some of those debates and all that, when they say religion, they say Islam, they say Christianity, Judaism, and they say Hinduism, and they mention Buddhism here and there. Na? Sikhi di galle nahi hegi ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਲੇ. When it's under criticism, ਸਾਰੇ ਪੰਥ it's going to have to be a little bit more organized than this. Na?
Yeah.
About the response to attacks and challenges and how it's not true. Na? God doesn't exist, or this isn't the way, and all that kind of thing.
And I think that kind of leads on to something that would be nice to finish off with as well. When it comes to kind of bringing the Panth together and thinking long term, I think we all agree that Bhai Jagraj Singh Ji is great at doing that seva, which he started, and that's carrying on now through the basis of Sikhi and BS TV and all the other types of work that people are doing out there. I just wanted to speak to you about what were your experiences with Bhai Sahib Ji, and maybe what you learned from them, what you saw from them that you really valued, and that maybe we could take away as well, because I think everybody had a different relationship with them and saw them from a different angle. I just want to get your perspective as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I met him a couple of times, and it wasn't a lot of times. And what it was with he had a nice personality, you know. You know when you got a warm personality. Or sare Sikhan kol nahi hegi ho, that where he's kind of like giving you shit but it's a bit warm, you know? It's not like even when he's talking to a Muslim, it wasn't like, you know, he could have. Sometimes you just want to smack the guy, you know? He's talking nonsense, but he didn't have that. He didn't have that thing where you know, had it where it's sort of, you know, loving nature. What I was talking about before, and only loving nature is going to unite everybody. So one of the things you can learn is loving nature that he has. Number two is that he had this kind of drive for Sikhi, where you know shabd nahi charan na chhado sareer kal jaye, you know. But just charan nahi chhadne, mere body le lo mere to, na. He kind of had that attitude towards Sikhi as well, but even he's ill, all those things, you know, it's a hard test. Someone, you know, something happened to me and I'm ill, I'll be saying, just don't come near me, mere lage na ho, main to gall hi nahi karni thode naal hona, me out of here, But he didn't have that attitude. He had the attitude of still continuing. Mission sada, you know, and the other thing is you know, the thing about uniting people, where, you know, if your view's different, and you know, everybody's educated. I still don't understand how narrow-minded we still are. No? You know, that thing where you when you're educated, you understand tolerance. You know, basic thing about tolerance. Someone else, I studied critical thinking. You know, to think critically. You know, the foundation of good critical thinking is humility, to say that you're potentially wrong. A critical thinker is someone who just looks at things and says, "Oh, what a load of nonsense that is." You're looking at that and saying, doesn't look right to me, but maybe I'm wrong. And you know, that element of critical thinking is that should be applied to all Gursikh should get training in it, I think, about what proper critical thinking is. But he could think about things critically, explain things critically, you know. But at the same time, he had a very a panthak approach, you know, to parchar. You know, the danger you have with any parchar is it's always tainted by a sampradaya soch, you know, sampradayak soch, and you gotta how do you get, you know, how do you do parchar without doing that? It's not easy. Easy nahi hai na. So there are a few things. There are a few things about him, but like say, you know, the warmth. It's like when you watched Bhai Jagraj Singh video, he's kind of like his. You like mine, or whatever. But I'm saying his video, you thought you knew him, even though you never met him. You know, he had that thing about his videos, like he's your mate, you know, your friend, and that was a unique part of basics of Sikhi start. You know, is that, you know, you had a very personal type relationship with somebody who just saying, "Hey guys, how you doing? You know, it's like he's just like, he's trying to, he's in your living room, you know? It's like that kind of thing. So they were the kind of things that stood out in terms of him as a Gursikh, and like I say, he was I think when they came to the Gurdwara once, did a collection and talking about basic Sikhi, you know, they had the stage for an hour or whatever it was, and so that time we just showed him around the Gurdwara and stuff, and it was he was like I say, he's just a very, very, if you look at some of the things, you know, the Musliman who were talking on the videos, even they realized, you know, jada prachar karna, I do it like him. I don't know if you noticed that. They what's that guy's name? That Muhammad, they'll call Muhammad, I think. Muhammad
Ali Dawa and
hijab, I think.
Hijab,
Hijab,
that one. Yeah. So you can see that he's seeing that, you know, this is a very, very, you know, there's a nicer way of doing it. But the difference is there's a disingenuous way of doing prachar, isn't it? And there's a genuine way of doing it. I think he's very, very genuine about it. It wasn't takiya or kitman, what they call their say something just to get you, you know, to believe it, but it's not really true. And it wasn't anything like that. So I think that was I think hopefully he's inspiration to a lot of people. But let's not do over up with this as well. It's very easy to fall into social media today, and then tomorrow someone's going to take video and then you're going to be sitting there thinking, you know, maybe vasta theek nahi hegi aaj, you know, or I'm not really feeling it, but we're just doing it. So it shouldn't be that, you know, it's out of control, because that, to me, it could become a drug type thing in itself, can't it? To just say, I've got to be on social media, and social media's biggest issue is to portray something that you're not. The biggest issue of social media, all these accounts, is that we're having a great time in our life, and then next week they're divorced, you know, it's a kind of it's very showy kind of thing, and so there's only that danger, but hopefully there's more. You know, I say it to everybody, if you're katha vajak, tusi katha pehla apne aap nu karo, hai na? If you're kirtani, you should be doing way more kirtan on your own than you're doing it in the sangat, hai na? You know, if you're a patti, your part should be a lot more of your own part than it is when you're doing it in the sangat, hai na? And that's a Sikh, because Sikh utthe apne gehne kadde a. Sikh is taking gehna, you know, your all your jewels, all your diamonds. You know, same where Gurbani even says, Gur miliye heer parakha, na bhai, wo nikal janda wo cheez that you're doing sanj at that time of that gun, but they got diamonds too, na jinne Sikh baithe a, ona kol bhi hege a, and that's what they should all have. Sare ke diamond a, they jo simran karde, koi shabd padda, o kirtan karde a, tusi sanj karde a. You're not, you know, one thing is, even if it's katha vajak, stage person, a kirtani, whatever you are, but you know, it's very easy to get in home about that gal pe mere varga kirtani nahi hega koi, mere varga katha vajak nahi hega koi, mere channel vargi koi hai nahi edda di, I'm amazing, hai na? Don't believe your own hype, hai na? All of that's detrimental to Sikhi. So do it in a way where, you know, you're a asset to the panth, not a liability, hai na? Then that, and there are many examples of that now, unfortunately, coming about. I know we don't. Hopefully, everybody can learn from other mistakes, I suppose.
Any final questions on me?
Bhai Sahab, where can we get your book, and how can we reach you on social media?
Social media, I'm not on social media, but the book, you can get it from sharecharityuk.com.
Yeah.
And yeah, so a lot of them have gone to Canada, USA now as well. India are asking for them as well. I don't know. I was assuming India would want Punjabi, but you can get it from the website. And like I said, the marriage book is going to be there from next week too.
Good, Paji. Thank you so much, Bhai Sahab Ji, for coming down and for coming on our podcast as well. Learned so much, so thank you so much. And hopefully one day we can have you again in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
So we finish up there?
Okay, just to quote one line from your book, that good luck on your journey, but there's no such thing as luck.
That's what I was like. A good way to finish it.
Yeah, there's no luck. Waheguru di kirpa hai sari.
Kirpa ji, Tanwa ji, please forgive the mistakes made, boss. Thank you so much.
Mistake ta sade hai sare.
Waheguru ji ka khalsa, Waheguru ji ki fateh.